So, you're live. Too bad, hold on. Right here.
Good evening. We're calling to order the the meeting agenda for Revere School Committee of April 25th, 2023. The time is 6 p.m. We'll all rise and salute the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dr. Macaba, would you call the roll?
Mrs. Bronston Rizzo.
Here.
Mr. Ferranti.
Here.
Ms. Gravelisi.
Here.
Mr. Kingston.
Here.
Mrs. Milbury Ellis.
Present.
Ms. Ty.
Here.
Acting Mayor Keefe.
Here. First off, we have our recognition. I believe School Committeeman Kingston has something to say.
I had the pleasure of going to the Beachmont School today for Inventors Club presentation. And it was just an amazing bit of work for fourth graders. And I just wanted to recognize, they all did well, but I just wanted to read this because one of the little kids asked me to and I couldn't say no. An extra special congratulations goes out to Paulina Vargas and Maria Marquez Bruno for being invited to showcase their invention at Eureka Fest, a celebration of inventing at MIT in June. We are very proud of you. I just wanted to congratulate these kids. They're in the fourth grade and they're going to go to MIT to do a little presentation. And I told them that I had to leave because I had to come to this meeting earlier. And I said, I promise I'll mention it at the meeting. So thank you for the latitude.
Thank you, Mr. Kingston. Any other school committee persons have any recognition? If I may speak from the chair, I just wanted to say again, I appreciate Mr. Kingston highlighting the positives in our school, and as we know that there are a few topics we talked about in the earlier subcommittee meeting. I think it's very important that we continue to do so. There's certainly always going to be work to do, and there's certainly going to always be opportunities, but to paint Revere schools with a broad brush is very dangerous, and we need to elevate the highlights, the in the heights moments. Tonight we have at 9:15. If you weren't aware, there's going to be the Revere robotics team that placed second in the world, and they're driving back in vans from Nashville, Texas, driving back in vans, and they're due to hit Revere around 9:15 p.m. There's going to be a police and fire escort from the Revere City Hall into the school grounds. This is a big accomplishment. You have the team that operates in a room not much bigger than this room, and what they do, the engagement. I've had the opportunity just recently to walk through the school with Dr. Kelly and some of the staff, and the engagement that the students have in that learning environment, not the best environment, but what they make of it is really commendable. And to have them do so well in a world competition is truly impressive. And there was a lot of comments this afternoon regarding the impact that our first art show had and our first theater show had in the last 30 years, and the impact that will make on some of these children's lives is also extremely impressive. And Dr. Kelly also shared with us the list of schools that the students in Revere High School are accepted to this coming graduation season. I can tell you that there's not one school in our neighboring community that has the list that we have. There's not one. There's not one private school that's north of us that parents pay a lot of money to send their children to, and granted, they're probably fantastic schools as well, that has the list of talented individuals that this Revere High School has. So continue to celebrate that. Thank you. Next item, we're going to be voting on the consent calendar. That would be the full agenda from this earlier meeting.
Motion to accept the consent calendar as presented at the Committee of the Whole meeting.
Second.
Mrs. Bronston Rizzo.
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti.
Yes.
Ms. Gravelisi.
Yes.
Mr. Kingston.
Yes.
Mrs. Milbury Ellis?
Yes.
Ms. Ty?
Yes.
Acting Mayor Keefe?
Yes. Order is passed. Agenda item number 4, student representative report. Do we have a member from the student representative today?
I am just getting an email from Erta right now. She had planned to present today, but something came up at the last second, so she's not going to be able to make it. She said we could feel free to present it, well, look on our own time, but they'll hold off on presenting it. And she'll keep in touch with Rayhan and Elney, who are our 2 official school committee reps, and one of the 3 of them will be here next time to present. They have some questions about transportation that they want to share with the committee.
Thank you. Place that on file.
Sure.
Next item is the public speaking portion.
So let me just check
Madam
the
Gravellisi?
YouTube. Why can I not get this? Sorry, this is not behaving well. Nope, there's nobody on the Zoom.
Madam Gravellisi.
Thank you, Mayor Keefe. I have a letter from a constituent, a parent, that was asked if I could read it. This letter is from Nancy Hass, 161 Fenley Street in Revere. Esteemed members of the school committee, my name is Nancy Hass. I am a Revere resident and proud graduate of Revere High School. My son attends the Lincoln School. I am concerned about the safety of students all over the country, and I write to you today specifically to address the safety of those attending Revere Public Schools. When I attended Revere Elementary Schools, crayons and number 2 pencils were the vital supplies my parents purchased for the upcoming school year. In my search for school supplies for my own child, bulletproof backpacks, inserts, and GPS devices that I can attach to my preschooler plagued my search history. When preparing for kindergarten, my mother used to make me practice opening my lunchbox and snack containers for fear that I wouldn't eat if I didn't know how to open them. In 2023, I am faced with the task of potentially making a 4-year-old practice sitting in a corner and being silent, for fear that if he speaks too loudly in a bad situation, he or his friends and teachers could pay the price. During the 12 years that I attended Revere Public Schools, 2000 to 2012, school shootings killed or injured 499. During the 4 years of my son's life, 2018 to 2023, school shootings have killed or injured 1,130 people. In 4 short years, the number of casualties is more than doubled the number occurring in my school career. Things have changed, and policies and procedures need to change as well. While change on the national level may seem bleak, you have the power to do something at the local level to help parents breathe a little easier, or at least stop holding their breath until the dismissal bell rings. In the short time that my child has attended RPS, I'm not aware of any active shooter drills, evacuation protocols, or safety plans that have been put in place. These things may be occurring, but I do feel that parents need to be part of the conversation. I propose some sort of informational night for parents to learn the procedures of each school in an active shooter situation. A letter home or a dodo message are simply not enough in this day and age. Our children's lives depend on it. Respectfully yours, Nancy Hass. That was a very nice letter written by Nancy. We did have a community meeting last summer. That was in conjunction with the school committee, the Revere Police, and the Revere Fire Department. Let's see, our school resource officers were there, Chief Callahan was there, Chief Bright, as well as, I can't forget his name right now, but anyways, Amy O'Hara was there, Officer O'Hara. But anyways, this meeting did outline all the protocols. There has been conversation about active shooter drills that were put on hold post-COVID because of the trauma that the children had gone through during COVID. We do plan on continuing these meetings. If anyone had missed them last year, it's something we want to have annually, hopefully every year before school opens. Dr. Kelly, I don't know if you want to talk any further on the situation, or if anyone had any more comments.
You want to go to Mrs. Rizzo first?
Sorry, Mrs. Rizzo, I didn't see your hand.
No, I was wondering, was the community meeting videotaped? That probably could be replayed so that parents that didn't attend,
That's a great idea. I believe that Riviera TV actually filmed that meeting. And we can ask them to rerun it. I'm sure it's on their YouTube channel, but we can ask them to run it again.
that would be wonderful.
One of the things that I will add is that we are somewhat, I don't know what the right word is, but quiet about our emergency plans, because one of the strategies that we've learned from law enforcement is that when a lot of people know exactly what your emergency plans are, that can be a greater danger than not having an emergency plan. But we do have emergency plans for all of our schools. Those buildings that have more than one school in them write a joint plan, but they also have ones that are specific to the elementary and the middle, or in the case of the Beachmont Elementary and the high school. And we review those plans every year with the local law enforcement, including the police department and the fire department, and update them as need be. Those plans are kept in the principal's office and reviewed with staff at the beginning of every school year. That's part of our opening day exercises, is to review the safety plans and the different definitions of hold in place, or other commands that depend on what a situation is that's happening. We have tended recently, since we got back from COVID, to focus more on fire drills and small safety drills, as we have seen so many more students and adults who are stressed, anxious, and dysregulated, and know that these kinds of drills can often amplify that in people who are already experiencing some discomfort. We've been trying to weigh the needs of people who want us to be drilling everything all the time, and the people who would find that overwhelming, and try to find the middle of the road. That's been our main priority. I know that, as I mentioned earlier in the Committee of the Whole meeting, we are continuing to work with staff and train staff. And we will continue to do that with teachers and all other members of the staff. We've been leaning away from doing a lot of different kinds of drills with students, but we have been talking to the police department about reincorporating those in the spring and for next year. It's just a real challenge. Our kids, we sent a letter home to parents on the Friday before vacation, because we had two separate instances where elementary students who were clearly experiencing anxiety and stress went to adults and articulated that as having seen something bad. In one case, it was a young child who thought they saw somebody with a gun, or said that initially to the adult who was in the hallway with the child at the time and said, "Where?" And the child pointed to a place where there was nobody and there hadn't been anything, and the teacher knew that, and quickly called the police, which we would do anyway. And very quickly the police determined, when the child said, "Maybe it was my imagination, I think it was a shadow." This is the kind of anxiety that these little kids have right now. And us saying, "Everybody hide in the closet, we're going to practice in case something happens," is not what children like that need right now. We had another situation in a different school with another elementary student who thought they saw a bullet in the wall. And, thankfully told an adult, which is one of the most important things that we want all of these kids doing all the time, is telling an adult so that we can get them some help, and also help understand the fear level that our kids have right now. This child also went to an adult and said, "I think I saw a bullet in the wall." And the adult went back and said, "Show me where you saw it." And there was a hole in the wall that was round. There was not a bullet in it. But that's, this is just where our kids are psychologically right now, and we are struggling, but really trying to help them through all of that and balancing, making sure everybody feels safe emotionally as well as physically. It's a challenge, but one that we are addressing every day in all of our schools, and will continue to do so. So I'll talk to our friends at Revere TV. That presentation we did was on August 10th. And I'm trying to see if I can get that name. I can't.
Dr. Kelly, also on our webpage, we have our icon, school year calendar, breakfast, lunch menu, RHS building project, and pandemic resources. And I'm going with the thought that we're done with this pandemic. If we could kind of make it like a safety so that people can look there for the YouTube, just have the YouTube video on it or the link to it.
Great idea.
So that they can access it anytime they want. And maybe maybe our policies or maybe what's in the handbooks as far as, just to give them another place to look for information. I know our city council spoke last night that they would like more information on how we handle safety in the schools, and this allows them to have another place to look for it and for any information that they may want.
Madam Ellis?
Sure. So, I'm a vocal advocate for training, for safety training, more so with respect to teachers and staff and admin. And just recently, the Paul Revere School had a training session, and my daughter came home and had expressed her words, having some anxiety around it. And that took me totally aback because we have these conversations all the time, and, it just kind of gave me that realness with respect to the other side of the coin. So I can understand that the need for that balance. I agree with Mrs. Hass's suggestion that we have another parent information session. I think the last one, the scheduling of it during the summer was not probably the best time to hold a meeting like that, where, people are on vacation and just kind of checked out. We should probably do it during the school year and maybe do that kind of thing frequently. I was just saying to Dr. Kelly that I think the more information that we put out there will dispel rumors and hearsay, and it will just provide for a much more transparent process as to what's actually going on in the schools. Not to say that there isn't room for improvement, but there's a lot of good things happening, and there are measures that are in place, and the information just, I don't know, maybe we need to just make it a little bit more accessible, if that's possible. Thank you.
I'll just add, I'm going to ask Dr. Mokaba to speak to this because I know that she's been working on the curriculum end of it, but one of the things that we also notified parents of in that letter and staff is that we were working on a curriculum around these pieces to work with kids in grades K through 12 around anxiety and who they can talk to, and just making sure, again, we put a strong emphasis on this at the beginning of the year, but reiterating for them now who our SROs are, what they do, who our social workers are, what they do, who our administrative teams are in each school and what they do, just so that everybody can have that front of mind again. So can you?
One of the things that Jill Herwig has been looking at and gathering research on is exactly what you said, Aisha, was the student anxiety. And for our little ones, what they've developed is a PowerPoint that we're going to share with school administrators that helps them identify a trusted adult and who they are. And they don't have to be, as Diane said, a school resource officer or an administrator. It could be a custodian. It could be the crossing guard. Understanding that if you feel uncomfortable or see something that makes you uncomfortable or hear something that makes you uncomfortable, developmentally appropriate levels, who is the adult you go to and what that adult will do after that. So we are going to, Jill's developed 2 great PowerPoints that we're going to share with the administrative team at the elementary and the administrative team at the middle school that incorporate those with individual pictures of the school support staff at each building so that kids can put faces with names. And ideally, we hope that Jill will share some of that information with us at a future meeting.
Now, just one last thing on this. Our website manager has just texted me that he has the video and will link it to the website first thing in the morning.
Thank you, Paul.
If I can also add to that, I attended last August, and it was really, I know Madam Gravelisi was there, and I believe Aisha, I remember you were there. Sergeant Turner, Captain O'Hara, the SROs that were involved, they put together a really good presentation, and they put me very much at ease because I was one of the rallying forces to help get that going with Ms. Gravelisi, because I had some concerns, and I was very, very satisfied. But I will say that, from a parental standpoint, and Aisha, you deal with this, perception can be reality sometimes. So we have to toe that fine line of overexposure and but also making sure that the parents feel safe about dropping their kids off in the morning. Because if they don't, then that anxiety can be related to their children. So even though we all know that communication is key to any program that we have, and we can have the best systems in place, if we don't have a good communication system, it's all for naught. So it is important that we find those ways to make sure that they're getting the right information, of course, that everyone has stated that. I know that some teachers have reached out about getting, they don't know that there is a school safety team already organized. And that's people that work in the building or work in the schools. So we need to make sure that communication is sent out in the proper form. But again, how do you fine line it so that you're not overexposing these younger students that don't know how to handle it all? Older students, it's a little bit different. They certainly have, we have to be sensitive as well to them, but obviously when you have kids that just look at a shadow and they all of a sudden, because of every time they turn the TV on, every time they turn the radio on, they hear about these dramatic instances across the country and across the world, they just immediately go to that, which didn't happen 20 years ago. Everyone was afraid of the white van 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Now it's like these real life things that people are nervous about. So. But I just want to commend again Sergeant Turner. I'm excited that we do have that captured and they can put that forth on Revere TV, and his team, the SRO, they did a fantastic job. And the training and the ability that they have and what they're able to do, and they made me feel extremely safe about, confident about the safety of our schools. Thank you. Superintendent report.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Keefe. We have a couple of quick updates that I'm going to give at the end of the report, but we do have 2 special presentations tonight. The first one is going to come from our curriculum department. Dr. Porter and Dr. Costa and Ms. Supis are here to share their presentation on using data to improve instruction. And so without further ado, I will turn it over to the 3 of you. And I will pull up your presentation. Oops, I already had it open. Okay. Oh, wait. Sorry, I do this wrong every time. I have to actually share my screen on the Zoom. Okay.
Okay. We want to thank the members of the school committee for having us here tonight. We're excited to present some of this work to you. So as Dr. Kelly mentioned, I'm Christina Porter. I'm the Director of Humanities for the district, and I'm joined by Dr. Costa, the Director of STEM Disciplines, and Ms. Supis, who is our Assistant Director of Curriculum and Instruction, as well as the Director of Title I. Next slide, please. So I'm going to start with our agenda and objectives for tonight. So we're going to be talking to you tonight about street data, and in a moment, Dr. Costa will define that for you a little bit. But it's one of the methods that we use to collect information about what's going on in our district. And by the end, we hope that you're able to describe some of the things that we have discovered in using the street data and the next steps in relation to curriculum and instruction. So I'm going to hand it off to Dr. Costa to talk about street data, and then we're going to share some data with you from 3 different types of street data: learning walks, Kiva panels, student shadowing, and then we'll have time at the end for questions.
Next slide, please. So the idea for street data comes from a book that we've all read on street data by Shane Saphir and Jamila Dugan. And in the book, they talk about 3 different types of data, and schools are really comfortable using these first 2 types. So the first type is satellite data, and satellite data is the data that you can think about as on the school's website. So attendance rates, graduation rates, MCAS data, advanced placement data scores, and all of that data is really valuable and can give us some good information, but it only gets to a certain grain size and maybe doesn't provide us with a complete picture of what's happening in schools and where we are in terms of our equity outcomes that we're looking for. Level 2 is map data, and that gets a little bit closer to the ground, and might be some common assessments or Lexile levels or benchmark data or whole school surveys of staff or students, and it gives us a little bit of a different picture of what's happening in schools, but still not at that student level experience. And then so the final level that they talk about in the book and that we've really tried to work to implement this year has been street data. And it really tries to get at the level of the user experience. So for us, really trying to understand what the student experience is like. So, thinking about shadowing students or really having an empathy interview with students or interviewing students and figuring out what's happening. So we're going to talk more about some of the street data that we've worked to collect. I'm going to pass it off to Ms. Supas.
Thank you, Dr. Costa. Okay, so the 3 different types of street data that we're going to present to you today is first, the learning walk data. I'll be presenting that from the elementary math and literacy and the middle school ELA. And then Dr. Porter will be talking to us about the Kiva panel data from the Revere High School, and Dr. Costa will be looking at shadowing student data across RPS. Next slide, please. Okay, so we conducted different learning walks across the district, which is always a really nice way to get to see students in action and learning. So we did this at the elementary level in both math and literacy, and we were able to do this the middle school level as well. And we did this at different times throughout the year, but we tried to do like the beginning of the year and then at the end of the year to look at some high-level trends across the district and be able to reflect on what we're seeing, some glows and some grows, areas that we're doing really well, and then areas that we can show improvement in. In the fall and the spring, we put together teams of teachers and administrators, representatives from our literacy program, TNTP, which are our DESE partners from GLEAM. We were able to go into many districts, 53 at the beginning of the year and 79 at the end of the year, different classrooms to see students working through both our math and literacy curriculums. We used rubrics after rubrics during the time, but then protocols after to debrief and really talk about what we saw. And some of our major takeaways was strong implementation of curriculum materials at the elementary level. So the teachers were able to use the curricular materials as they were intended. They felt in the debrief that they, were supported with both professional development and the areas of the curriculum that were new to them. There was strong emphasis on fostering independence in both reading, writing, and mathematics. And in the middle school, there was strong and supportive classroom environments where the students were engaged and willing to take risks. And we're working on teaching and assessing the full depth of the grade level standards. Our next steps and some of the things that we're currently working on right now are planning professional development workshop series for this summer as well as next year. And this will include another round of walkthroughs at both the elementary level and the middle school level, and then we'll start at the high school level as well.
Thank you. So the next type of street data we want to share with you is the Kiva panel. So I have to say, I really, really loved doing this. This process came to us from Dr. Coster and Dr. Kelly are actually a member of the Deeper Learning Dozen, and that's where they had been introduced to this. So basically, it's just a process where we're able to hear from different groups to hear the student perspective. So we found 5 high school students, and we had them join a meeting of all of our coaches and consulting teachers on a Friday. We looked for recommendations from teachers. We wanted a range of different types of students so we could hear different types of experiences. We met with the students, linked in your slides. If you click the blue Kiva panel, it gives you the questions, but I can read you some of the questions that we asked the students. So obviously we shared the questions. We made sure that they were comfortable with answering them and they were okay with participating. So it would be questions like, can you share a time that you felt motivated to do work in school? Can you share a time you felt unmotivated to do work in school? Can you tell us about a time you experienced joy with what you were doing in class? So again, we made sure kids were comfortable. We checked in with them before. So then they came and we asked them these questions so they had a chance to prepare. Dr. Kelly, if you could go to the next slide for a second. I want to share the takeaways and then I'll come back to next steps.
I don't know what the delay is.
You've got it. It's okay. It's dramatic, and we like that here. So we had the folks that were in the audience, the adults that were listening, share some of the things that stuck out to them in listening to students. So while a lot of the questions were about, motivation, sort of academic questions, a lot of the feedback that we got from kids is that they really did best in classrooms where they felt like they were in a family, where they felt like they were respected by the adults in the room, where the adults took time to build those relationships, and they had a really nice connection of once you have an environment like that, you can be held to really high standards and know that you will succeed. So that's something that we all heard loud and clear from them. And Dr. Kelly, if you could go back to the previous slide for 1 second. So some of our next steps with Kiva panels would be supporting our teachers and hearing from students. I'll say I've been in the district for 21 years, and it was one of the most moving experiences I've had as an educator to hear what these students had to say, to continue supporting high expectations and high cognitive demand in classrooms. Our kids are certainly capable of doing work of that nature, so we want to continue to support people in providing that. Build the capacity of folks to focus more on what students can do rather than what they can't do yet. Sometimes we can be in that mindset of what kids can't do, so really supporting people and thinking about what they can do and how we're going to help them get to where they aren't yet. And we have a lot of guidelines that we've created. Some were taken from the Kiva panel resources that I mentioned before, but we have to ensure that if we're going to do this, that students feel safe and supported in this type of setting. So that's some of our next steps, and I'm going to hand it back to Dr. Costa.
So the final type of street data that I'm going to talk about is our shadowing of a student. So the last couple of years, we've had a deeper learning team in the district, which we have representation from all of our schools with an administrator and some teacher leaders. And each year, what we've done as a team, one of the things we've done to really try to understand the student experience is all of us have shadowed a student for at least 3 hours during a day. And really the power there is, one of the challenges with school is that all of us have experienced school as students, and for some of us that was a long time ago. It makes us think that we understand what they're going through now and what school's like now. And by shadowing a student, we really can have some takeaways about what school is like now and what that experience is like for our students, and it gives us empathy with their experience. And so all of us shadowed students, and we debriefed what we had for some takeaways. And our focus as a deeper learning team was partially on the evidence of deeper learning that we were experiencing as a student. And while we shadowed students, we were doing all the work that students were doing in their classes. So really some of our takeaways were all of us experienced at different times lessons that were really engaging and had indicators of deeper learning, and that was something that we were proud of as a team. And there were a lot of effective routines and a lot of SEL check-ins that really put us as learners in a good spot and made things good. It sounds like a minor takeaway, but one takeaway that some of us had was, especially like the middle school and high school classrooms, like sometimes you could be sitting for maybe too long and there wasn't like enough movement, and as adults you could feel that, and maybe sometimes the only time we got up to move was when it was time to transition, and just having that understanding and that empathy of what our students are experiencing. And then even sometimes at the middle school and high school level, just trying to navigate different expectations or where materials are located in different classrooms, just as an adult, like trying to learn about those different routines in the moment were, challenging for us. So some of our next steps that we identified was to continue to expand understanding of and implementation of some of the deeper learning practices to try to spread some of the good deeper learning opportunities that we saw in places and some of the moves that led to deeper learning, and continue to expand some of the building thinking classrooms routines that I believe you've all have heard about, where students might be doing work, standing up in a group, and experiencing that, and just like having that opportunity for movement. So if you go to the next slide, you will see some of the takeaways from the team around some of the things that they saw, heard, and felt as they were shadowing a student. And as Dr. Porter mentioned, some of these experiences that we have, like even though they're brief, can lead to some powerful takeaways and can help us just better think about our students as we're planning and designing lessons. So if you go to the next slide, that I believe is the end of our presentation, and we will open it up if there's any comments or questions for us.
Seeing no questions? Madam Rizzo?
Just, excellent, like always. It was easy to read, easy to understand. And I just love the whole idea of the deeper learning program. So I thank you for everything you do each and every day. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Madam Gravellisi?
Thank you. I just want to say I love the fact that you shadowed the students for 3 hours. That's phenomenal, because sometimes we don't really think about what they're thinking or experience what they're thinking, and the fact that sitting too long in one spot without having a break really can, diminish your ability to focus, because you just get in that stagnant mode. But the fact that you did that was just phenomenal. Great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
You did too. Thank you, Dr. Kelly, for your shadowing too.
Ms. Ellis?
Sure. So this is important work, right? Because it kind of helps us to figure out how best to teach our kids. I'm just trying to I'm trying to understand how we take this good information and then how we see that translated in the classroom. So I get it, like, okay, we tell the teachers, like, hey, this is what the kids are saying, or this is what they're experiencing. But how do we really follow that through to make sure that this data isn't going to waste and that it's effective?
Oh, that's a really good question. Thank you. I think it has to happen in a lot of different ways. Obviously we internalize this data and we think about it and we look at what would be some good PD opportunities for us to develop and for us to have in place. Mm-hmm. We have teachers who are on the deeper learning team, and so they experience it. And sometimes as a teacher, when you experience something, that's going to have a really big impact on you, and you're going to be more mindful of that when you're planning lessons, and maybe even just think about some small ways that you can bring in some movement into your class, because if you don't have that movement in your class, then maybe the only time students are getting up to move around is when they're passing in between classes or when they're getting up to go to the bathroom, right? So it's just trying to think about what are these different ways that we can lead to some of the changes that we're hoping to see.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bless you. Ms. Ty, apologize. Oh, I miss you.
Oh, just make an observation just before you go. You made me, you know I couldn't keep quiet. You made me think about how different my class was when I was doing introductory adverb clauses, as opposed to putting sheets on kids and killing Caesar. That was, and I mean, you can't do everything all the time, so it must be really hard to try to balance that when it can be really rich, and then other times it's just dragging through. You need it. I don't know how you can do some of those things, but I see that you are experiencing it and going to try to. So I'll be very interested in seeing how this moves along.
Next item on the agenda is the RHS redesign plan and updates. Mr. Bowen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we have, Principal Bowen is here to talk about some of the work that's been happening at the high school. And I have a little bit of a gaffe in the agenda. We listed it as redesign plan and updates, which is part of what I want to share with you. There is some great information that we can share about Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and a couple of other programs that are happening at the high school. But right now, Principal Bowen and Ms. Shavs, who's been overseeing our peer restorative practices program that you had approved as a pilot, is going to share what's been going on with that program and what kids have to say about it to date. So I'll invite them up to start speaking while I pull up their presentation and get ready to share that. This machine is going to make me insane. Sorry. You can start.
Thank you. Before we dig into hearing about the work that Ms. Shavs has been doing with her Restorative Practices Fellows to help our school do more restorative intervention when things happen, when things go wrong, when there's harm committed in our community and there's harm that needs to be repaired, I wanted to begin by framing two components of, to us, what is really important about restorative practices, because I think a lot of times that is not understood widely, both in school and outside of school. So you can go to the presentation, the first page there. The first thing, I think there's this sort of misconception out there that restorative practices is everybody like sitting in a circle singing Kumbaya, like just talking about what's going on. And the reality is that if all you're doing is sitting and supporting students and talking through things, you're being very permissive because you're not holding them accountable for what needs to happen. And so at Revere High School, the vision of restorative practices that we're working to build is one that is both filled with accountability and support for students. And we look here on this slide, we think of what's called the social discipline window, that if you are not highly accountable, holding students highly accountable, and doing so in a way that is very supportive of how they can reach those goals that you're setting them, you're not in that restorative window. And so I just wanted to name that we need consequences that provide accountability when things go wrong, to show our concern for that behavior that's often unskillful, inappropriate, or unacceptable. But then we also need supports, interventions that are in place, like the work that Sarah is doing with her fellows, to be able to help them learn from those experiences, right? And I just wanted to name that I think that there's this misconception that restorative practices means that there's no discipline. That's not the case. That is actually just a permissive school environment. And I just wanted to name that. Restorative means high accountability and high support. I'm going to go to the next slide and just remind folks here that in November, there was a very significant change to state discipline law, right? And that kind of required two big things for schools to do differently before they think about suspensions. That was to really consider ways to re-engage students in the learning process, and to not suspend or expel students, to explicitly not suspend students until alternative remedies have been employed and the results of those remedies demonstrated. So if Sarah and I were like walking down the hall and we got into a fight because of a situation that happened, the law currently says that the school's response to that fight needs to be restorative, holding the students accountable for what happened, but the sent home, you're out for the rest of the week, that is not what the law in Massachusetts is telling schools we need to do right now. Now, when we've had the fifth fight, the second fight perhaps, that's a different story. But I just want to name that we operate under laws that govern how schools function, and that has struggled. We've struggled with that. But luckily, we had the creation of Sarah's position prior to that law changing, and we want to share a little bit about the way that her work with the fellows, the juniors and seniors who are in her restorative practices seminar, have helped us respond to that. So I'm going to turn this over to Sarah to talk a little bit about that, but I just wanted to kind of set the stage in that way. Okay?
Hi, everyone. Thank you again for allowing me to pilot this position, and it has been so great. I do want to touch a little bit about my work with students. I'm assuming all of you know Linda Barber, who is the restorative practices coach for the middle schools and the elementary schools. My work here at the high school is a bit different. Whereas Linda works primarily with staff, I am working primarily with the students at the high school. So some of my work that we've been implementing here during this pilot program is really all about collaborative problem solving, as Mr. Bowen was saying. And what that looks like is very different on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes that is kind of what the scenario that Chris was saying about a fight. A lot of times I'm dealing with individual restorations, where if two kids get into a physical fight, I am having to have an individual conversation with student A, an individual conversation with student B, then a mediation with those two students, and then a follow-up with each student individually, as well as with teachers, guidance counselors, social workers. So it is a full team effort that we're doing here, and I think it's great what Chris was saying. I know there's struggles with this new law that passed, but I think it really has become a full team approach, that when conflict happens, all hands are on deck and we're all working together. But it does take time, right, to deal with all of those conversations and to make them successful. So part of that is that in-school intervention, as Chris was saying, where you're not just throwing kids out of the school, they are coming to see me. We are looking at some academic reading, we are looking at a video together, and we're thinking about these greater social issues that are happening on a global scale and how the conflicts that they're having here in this building relate to those things, so that they're really kind of going beyond just the four walls of this high school. And then I have my restorative practices seminar. So then I'm teaching all of these practices to my juniors and seniors. So they are being amped up in restorative practices, and they are doing a lot of the peer mediation with me. So it's been great to kind of see students leading this work as well. And all of this work that I'm doing with students is really helping me work more closely with Chris and the rest of the leadership staff at the high school to then really impact not only the culture within students, but the greater school culture, if you want to tap back into that.
One of the things that Sarah and I and her fellows have partnered on is really trying to spend time listening. We started listening to teachers. We got a school climate working group together where we got a bunch of teachers together to talk about the issues in the building in terms of discipline, in terms of consequences, behaviors, all of that. From that, we kind of teased out what our initial framework for how we want to respond to these incidents are, or what that would be. And we've been drafting that, bringing it to one of the directors' meetings that is working on tiered supports in the building. And when we got that to a decent place, we then handed that back over to Sarah and her fellows to bring student voice to that. So then they've been looking through, well, teachers are saying these are issues they run into that they feel like aren't necessarily always handled the right way. Okay, what do they think should be the response to that? Students, what do you think should be the response to that? How do we come to an agreement of what accountability and support in the building looks like? Sarah's fellows are working with her also to design modules that when a student, let's say, engages in something that's like plagiarism, right? That is a kind of a common thing in high school and in college, but in high school, as opposed to saying, boom, you get the 0, done. What's the learning experience there? If that is the only thing that happens, the kid does not grow. right? So what is the module, what is the learning experience that the kid needs to go through with that particular incident? And we've got a list of incidents that the faculty suggested would be worthy of having these learning experiences. Her group of students is making those modules so that students can be given those during these in-school intervention days that happen in lieu of a suspension or something like that. And I just want to name that we could not do this work without the position that Sarah occupies to take the time to do that work with kids.
Takes a lot of time. I thought it would be great, since we're talking so much about student voice. I worked with since I took on the role, beginning of second semester, I think.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah. I've worked with about 80 students so far. So 80 students who have been in conflict in the building. And I gave them a quick survey, and I've been doing kind of what the street data that they were just talking about to get their perspective. And here's some of the things that they're saying. So one of the questions I asked was, our conversation was helpful in getting me to understand the harm that was done on either side. So as Chris was saying, noticing the accountability, not only if I got into a disagreement with a teacher, but where was my accountability in that argument as well? And as you can see, a huge part of the kids either strongly agreed or somewhat agreed, which was great. Next slide. This other part, our conversation was helpful in getting me to understand that harm created an obligation in me to help resolve the problem. Again, one of the main components of restorative practices is recognizing that if there is conflict, then whoever is within that conflict needs to be part of the solution, right? We, as teachers, as administrators, we can't just be slapping kids and saying this is punishment, because we will see those behaviors happen over and over again. Once they are part of the process of finding that solution, those situations and behaviors are more or less likely to happen. And again, huge number of students strongly agreed or somewhat agreed. Next one. Our conversation was helpful in repairing the harm and making things right. Strongly agreed, somewhat agreed, really big percentages here. This is not to say, and I think something that I want to highlight, this is not to say that I don't see some kids pop up again. But what it allows me to do is to have those deeper conversations, say, okay, what did we learn about before? And the transference that is happening is a lot more there. They're not seeing this as a single fight that I got into and this is a whole different situation. They're able to see the connections between the two scenarios, and I'm having really deep relationships and experiences with these kids. Next one. This one was great. Our conversation was worth my time, which with high school students, I thought this was great. Almost all of them agreed. Like, yes, this conversation was helpful to me. And the next one, this is the last, I think this is the last one. Our conversation has changed my relationship for the better with the person or people I initially had a problem with. This one, they may not have the best relationship. They may not be best friends with their friend who they got into a fight with, or they may not totally be best friends with their teacher, but these relationships are healing. But again, it does take time. And the last question I asked, which I thought was great, our conversation has changed my experience at RHS for the better. An overwhelmingly percentage of students said that it is changing their experience. The next slide shows just a little bit of street data. I love that term. So the first one, if we're talking about relationships, which is one of our big 4 R's here. It says, the reason I met with you, meaning me, was because I was having problems with my math teacher. I feel if it wasn't for you, me and that teacher would still have problems. You talking to her and me actually helped a lot and resolved the problem. So notice that that could have been a relationship with a student and a teacher that just completely would have disheveled that student's performance in that class, and just a couple of mediations completely changed that. And then the next one, it says, she, meaning me, she hunted me down. I don't like that phrasing, but she hunted me down so that we could talk. She would make sure that I was okay, not just in that class, but in general. I had some problems with the teacher. I started to skip a lot, and she somehow found me while walking around and talked to me. She also connected points because I truly don't know how to express myself. So she took her time to talk to me and tried to connect the points. She's a great person to talk to. So allowing those kids to see the resilience that they have within themselves to continue on even when there's a lot of bumps along the road.
So the 3 takeaways we'd like to leave you with as we think about how we grow this work, not just at the high school, but I think across the district, is that the new laws on school discipline require us to work with students in problem-solving ways. But that takes time. Students do have a willingness to restore situations, even when we think of them as these like storm and stress adolescents who don't want anything to do with any of that. No, they do have a willingness to restore, but that takes time. And educators can help students develop that ability to restore because it can be taught. We can learn that if we explicitly teach it, but that takes time. And the way that we get that time is by getting the capacity of our adults, getting more adults able to do this work earlier with students from the beginning of high school, before they get to high school, talking that way. And really freeing up people to do the work. If you think about the number of conversations with one conflict that Sarah outlines, those are not like 10-second conversations, right? That's a half-hour meeting first, and then another half-hour here, then maybe the mediation's 45 minutes to an hour, and it goes awry in the middle, and we have to take a break and come back. That's a lot of time for one conflict in a building of 2,200 students and 183 adults. Right? And so I think when we think about the way that we are required by law to work differently to set a climate in a school, I'm just very grateful that we as a high school had the opportunity to have Sarah's position before all of that law, all of that changed, because it really changed the direction of how we were thinking of designing this program, and we had that resource. So thank you for that. And I think when we think about some of the professional development that you've supported earlier today, and it is positions like this and the growth of positions and programs like this that will really let that work, thrive. So thank you. Questions?
Ms. Gravelisi?
Thank you, Mayor Keith. That was a great presentation, as always. I'm really just happy that actually you brought to the forefront the changes in the Mass General Law, not only for myself and my other school committee members, but for the community and parents, so that they can understand better the changes that you have and we have been experiencing. It would be helpful information if we actually, I can't not remember which Mass General Law it was, I forget which number it was. That could be helpful information for parents and the public out there that are wondering about, what we are doing for discipline in the community. They can actually look it up themselves and read it and realize that, you're following all the protocols, and information on actually when that law was changed, so that the community members, parents can understand like how these changes have affected the disciplinary actions that are taken in the school, and how well you've taken on this role and what you've accomplished in the short period of time. So I'm not sure if anyone knows which Mass General Law that is.
It's 37H and 3/4.
There you go. The lawyer knows. 37H
and 3/4.
37H.
It was amended November 2022.
Okay.
Not to be confused with 37H and a half or 37H.
Exactly.
Okay.
Ms. Ellis?
Great. Thank you so much, and thank you, Aisha.
No, sure. So the law also puts the onus on administration to document incidences of misconduct. And so I think that's also an important component when we're talking about accountability, because as wonderful as what the work that you guys are doing is, and ideally, it would be great, right, if we had enough people that could, be able to address all of these issues in this way. But we also know that that's not necessarily practical, given the time constraints, given 2,200 kids and, what did you say, 180 adults in the building. So you also have this other component where documentation is necessary. So I just thought that was important to point out, so we're not handcuffing ourselves in the event that discipline is required, we're taking all the steps to ensure that we have the ability to do so in cases that we need to.
Absolutely, and the work that Sarah does when she has these in-school intervention days, we have a whole process, and we can kind of show the templates of the documents if you want to see, but how we log all that information, and then when there are repeat incidents with the same student or with the same two students, which actually happens a lot less than the same student doing something differently, we do have the documentation to say this happened the first time, and this was the intervention and the consequence that happened.
Great.
And then this is the second, and that is kind of part of the process that the administrators and Sarah work through when an AP refers a student to in-school intervention.
That's
And
great.
so that's all there for us.
Yeah, that's great. That's good to hear. It's that follow-through, I guess, that, allows you obviously to do what you have to do.
And
in certain
there's something
instances.
tangible having the written paper,
Right.
saying to the student,
Just
this
the
is
student,
the
hey.
agreement we made the last time this happened,
Right.
the contract you signed, and this is
Right.
the plan going forward, and you didn't follow through
And
on
you
that
didn't follow
part.
through with that.
There's something about that formality that even a 14-year-old gets.
I agree. Thank you. Thank you so much. This is great work. Thank you.
I was going to, just to add, I think part of the thing that I love so much about this new role is my flexibility and time to be able to follow up with those students, right? Whereas we have the intervention, we have the mediation, but then part of my job as well is then to go check on that kid 3, 4, 5 days later, even the next week, and be like, how are things going? So that if there is some still tension there, I can address it and follow up.
I mean, I'd say I think that the rule can be tweaked. And I would love for it to be amended in a way that is a little less broad. But it is what it is for now, and as long as we're doing what we have to do as far as a paper trail, I think everything else is just positive. So, thank you.
Just a couple of points to add to that. One is that we are required to collect all of that data and report it to the state, which we do through our student information system. Everything gets logged and then it automatically goes up to the state level. But in terms of capacity, because that is a real worry, we have Sarah. She's the only one right now doing this work. But ultimately, the goal is to build capacity among students so that the peers can be doing some of the mediation, especially junior and seniors can be doing the mediations for freshmen and juniors, and that will alleviate some of that work. But ultimately, we'd like to see, as Mr. Bowen mentioned, the student said to him, we should be doing this in middle school. That's where this should be starting. And then when it comes up, all of that becomes a lot more routine for students. So, that's something that we're hoping that this model program that Ms. Shavs has put together is something that we'll be able to emulate across our middle schools as well. And that will help with the capacity building as well.
Thank you. Ms. Ty.
I think of that, I was in administration at a time when the law was, that they were expelled if they had a weapon, and almost always, not all.
That is still the law. That's still the law.
Sorry?
That is still the law.
Let me finish this, okay. But every single time, it was a time that a kid was afraid of something. There was always fear behind that kind of behavior. And if you could get at the fear and have a discussion about that and how they could move away from that and how we could help do that, that's the only way that the kid was ever going to change behavior too. So it was really difficult though, because sometimes there was an interpretation of what the background was and what had actually happened and who said what and who did that. But to have somebody in there all the time, the way you are, is enormously helpful, I would think. And I really like that they said they recognized your sensitivity and said she's a great person to talk to. And that's just about what everybody needs, a kid, an adult, or anyone. You need somebody to sort of be on your side and try to help you out, and especially when you don't fit in and you feel you don't fit in. So I think we need more of you if we can do it. Thank you. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Kingston.
I appreciate your work. Mr. Bowen, what's the plan going forward?
Thank you. We have spent a lot of time researching what other high schools do in the state, and we'll be coming to you, I believe, very shortly, sort of with a proposal for a restructuring of not only the leadership team but our student support team, in some roles that are needed and don't currently exist, and some restructuring of what responsibilities fall in which role. I think we spoke earlier in March to have a tighter team of adults working with a tighter team of the same students, so that that group can get together and really, with intentional role clarity, problem solve the work that needs to happen, and help the students who are succeeding and thriving do so even more. It's not just about students who are struggling, right? It is often that students who are struggling, when students are struggling and we are stretched thin in the ways we respond to that, other things go, right? And then there are some things, some other students that maybe don't get the attention that they deserve or they need because we're stretched thin in the wrong way. So I think we'll be coming to you, Mr. Kingston, with some restructuring. We're in that budget process right now with Dr. Kelly.
Thank you.
Because of this.
Thank you.
There will be some requests coming soon. Just before Principal Bowen leaves, I want to quickly recognize Deputy Principal Riley, who's also here and has done a ton of work in this area. And just three brief announcements about new programming that has been recently approved for our high school students. One is that we received the early college designation with our program with North Shore Community College, so we're really excited for that. It's going to begin next year and will be open to class of 2026. So students in this program will take college and high school classes simultaneously. They'll be aligned to their career concentrations that we're building as part of our planning strategy for ultimately the new high school, we hope, God willing. And they'll have a chance to earn up to 30 college credits for free by the time they graduate from Revere High School. So we're really excited about giving families in Revere the opportunity to have 2 years of college for free at no cost to the family. The second is that we have a new dual enrollment partnership with Suffolk University. That's also going to begin in the fall. Eligible Revere students will benefit from that dual enrollment partnership. Courses will also be aligned to our career concentrations program, and again, those will be free of charge to Revere students. No guarantee of the 30 credits, but still a great new partnership for us. And the third one I am super excited about. We were one of 100 Massachusetts schools that applied to be a new partner with the Big Brother, Big Sister program, and they selected Revere out of those 100 separate schools. So our high school is going to work with Big Brother, Big Sister to launch the Big Futures Mentoring Program. Again, this will begin in the fall, and we will have 80 to 100 ninth graders, class of 2027, who will be invited to participate. It'll be an extension of our Summer Bridge program that Mr. Bowen actually coordinated over the last several years, and that's going to continue this summer. And the program provides students with a community-based mentor, but also engages them in college and career-focused experiences throughout their 4 years at Revere High School. And I think the greatest win of all of this is those students who are serving as mentors get paid for their work. So when we think about our kids who are pulled away from school as soon as the school day ends because they need to earn some money, we have a way now that they can earn that money, stay in the district, and mentor younger students, which is going to make them be even more successful at the high school level. So we're really excited about that. And I just, Mr. Bowen, I thought you might want to comment on one or more of those before we let you leave.
Thank you. I think the Two things to note that I want to mention about the early college program and the Big Brothers program is that next year we'll be taking on the first cohorts, but they are planned to continue. So we will take on 75 current ninth graders into that early college cohort program, and that will continue year after year after year. So we'll have about 375 students at capacity in that program. Same with Big Brothers, Big Sisters. So we will take on about 80 to 100 new students, ninth graders next year. And then that will continue the next year and the next year, and these are 4-year programs. So at scale, we'll have about 400 students in the school that are matched with these community mentors. And the cool thing, I think, about the location of the city of Revere, accessibility on the MBTA, all of that, I think part of the excitement of Big Brothers and working with Revere was the ability to, it's their job to get the mentors, right? It's their job to sustain the program, and getting people who live in Revere, who work in the city, who work in organizations in the city that can really help recruit mentors to be part of the program and then get to Revere to come work with students, I think was a big draw for them, including some of our career concentrations planning that they really wanted. It really aligned with what they're trying to do as a program. So we're the only high school in the state that was selected for this next branching out of this program. It's not like other high schools that got this. They're in 2 Boston public schools currently, and they're working with us for the next several years to like build up this program. So.
That was going to be my next question, how many high schools, but now I know we're the only one.
Very nice.
That's awesome.
Okay. The next item, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Next item is item number 6C, BBST Planning Team.
Sure. So just a couple of quick words. We're going to have a presentation actually at the May meeting about the BBST redesign, and this is part of our total special ed redesign, but we've had a separate working group who's been working on our BBST structures. They've met 10 times over the course of this year and have some ideas on how to change that process in order to make things work better for students. So I'm not going to say much more than that, other than they're going to be here to present to the school committee at the May meeting, that team of teachers who worked on that, in that BBST working group. And we're just very thankful for all of their hard work that they put in over the last year, rethinking that piece of our process that sometimes leads to a special education identification. And what we're trying to do is really make sure that as much as possible, we're not assigning kids student special education designation when it's not necessary. And that's the work that this BBST focus group has been engaged in all year. So I will save the details of that for them to present, since it's their work. They've done an incredible amount of work, and we're just very thankful to them for everything that they've done. And then just to close out the superintendent's report, I have 2 quick updates that were not on the agenda, but I think are important for the committee and the community to know. One is that our girls' basketball team has been invited to play at the TD Garden, which they're really excited about. They're selling tickets for that game. If people are interested, they can contact anybody on the basketball team to get more information. This is a huge honor that our boys team was invited to do a couple of years ago, and now we're really excited to see the girls receiving that same honor as well. And then the last thing is that we have the Deeper Learning Dozen, which is the group of districts that we work with through Harvard University, those districts from the Northeast, the Northwest, and Canada, who are working together on deeper learning initiatives, a lot of which you heard about tonight. They're going to be in residence in Revere next week from Wednesday till Friday. So they're going to be visiting our schools, mostly the Susan B. Anthony. We're having presentations primarily about our teacher leadership positions, the C2C program, our grading practices subcommittee program, our deeper learning teams, and others. So we're really excited to have them come and visit. On Thursday, we will be at Harvard doing our work there, and then Friday morning, we'll be back at Revere. They are staying at the Marriott Bonvoy on the beach, which is really exciting. And if you see a large group of people doing yoga on the beach, Mrs. Rizzo, that's probably the team, because they
Well,
like to
it
get up
won't
and
be
do...
me.
Well, you're welcome to join them if you would like, but they like to get up and do some morning nature exercises, and I had suggested that that would be a good activity for the group. And that is it for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Ms. Kelly. Hearings, number 7, we do not have any. Reports and subcommittees. I believe that's Mr. Ferrante.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Keefe. There was a meeting today at 4 o'clock, the Ways and Means Subcommittee, which was a discussion of the RHS school climate support. It was attended by myself as the chair, members were Carol Ty and John Kingston. Also, School Committee Woman Aisha Milbury-Ellis was there, the mayor, Dr. Kelly, Dr. McColber, Matt Cruz, and Principal Chris Bowen. There were 4 items that were brought in front of us. The first goal, he wanted to transform the security and translator role. He's looking to add 2 positions to that part of the security. It's not going to be a significant cost this year because it's only going to be a maximum of 9 weeks if we can find people to take the job. He increased his salary from $17 an hour to $23 an hour, hoping to entice people, but we're not sure if it's going to happen, but he just needed our approval to do that. He wanted to, number 2 goal, to increase the number of RHS campus staff reports from 6 to 10. They're running out of people to do bathroom duty and other duties here. He's looking to add 4 people. Again, not the cost significant this year. It will be in next year's budget if we can get lucky and hire some people. His third goal was to replace the field house doors with modern fire doors. They really didn't establish a cost on it, but the estimation was probably around $12,000. His fourth goal was electronic hall pass system and tied it to school scan, which was dropped because they believe they can take care of that at no cost. And his last goal was to collaborative problem-solving professional development for $32,000. Everything was discussed and approved by the subcommittee. And at this point, unless there are any questions, that I would like to have a roll call.
Recommendation.
All right, recommendation, sorry.
A recommendation?
Recommendation to approve the motion.
You didn't make a motion.
The motion is to accept Principal Bowen's asks to improve the school climate improvement.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Dr. Mokuba?
Mrs. Bronson Rizzo?
Discussion, please. So my question is, why isn't it not going to on the budget? Why are we voting money now when we're in the process of drafting a budget for next year?
I can answer. His answer, when I asked him that, he said that they want to do it now. They want to try to hire people right now and not wait for July to come forward. They do have money that they want to put in the budget for next year, but he's trying to entice people to hire them now.
Okay, and also, you said he wanted to go from 6, and believe me, I feel like these are all important items, but he wants to go from 6 to 10, but we haven't filled the 6 yet, so why aren't we just trying to fill the 6 first and see where that gets us?
No, he has 6. He wants to go from 6 to 10.
I thought there's 6 openings.
Between the translator security has 2, and he has 4 for the increased campus support staff. So he's trying to fill 6 positions.
That was already budgeted.
That was, yes.
That was
Yes.
already
But
budgeted.
just with an increased pay, that's all.
Yeah, there's 2. Just 2 of them, if I could.
There's 2 open positions.
There's 2 open positions.
2 open positions,
Okay, and that
then
was
he-
budgeted.
yes. But he's increasing the rate of what was budgeted from $17 to $23 an hour to hope to entice people.
Ms. Rizzo, I understand what you're saying is if we're not able to fill those positions, why you're looking for more. This is a hopeful goal, and obviously, he's hoping to get these hires in. So, but he wanted to expand it so that if he does get good people, he can hire them. And, I'm not sure he's going to be able to, but, he's gonna try and put it out there so he can get those. Ms. Gravellisi.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Keefe. I was not in attendance at this meeting, but at the last meeting when Principal Bowen was here and he had given us this proposal, we all did agree it was a great idea. We definitely need more, what he's now calling campus support staff with our security, having more security or support staff on each floor, covering more areas. Obviously, in today's day, it's difficult to find staffing, no matter what industry you're in. So the fact that he is proposing a salary increase is, in my mind, a great idea to entice people to fill the position. So just my comment added in.
Ms. Ellis.
I'm just looking for clarification. I'm hoping one of my colleagues or Dr. Kelly can answer this. The presentation that we just witnessed, where, they were discussing having individuals that would be able to share in the work. Are these the same individuals that we're talking about in these new positions for the campus support staff? Or are they going to come back and have a whole different name of titles and positions
So
that they're
yes
looking
and
for?
yes.
Okay.
All right, so part of the plan is that we repurpose security translators the way they're used right now and give them a more specific assignment. So for example, I know that one of the reasons Mr. Bowen wants to increase the staff to 10 is because it would enable him to have a team of 3 that's on the 3rd floor, that does the 3rd floor, that watches the cameras on the 3rd floor, that monitors student movement on the 3rd floor. And so they become used to student schedules, know who belongs where when, and gets to know the teachers and the team up there. There would be a similar team of 3 on the 2nd floor. And he feels a team of 3 is necessary in order to triangulate and be able to cover the whole area of that floor when you have the front loop on School Street and the back loop over the cafeteria. And then on the 1st floor, he wanted to have a team of 4, which he did a lot of thinking about this. He and his team thought all of this through about who would be where, when, and how they would move. So he's got a very detailed plan. And those folks would be doing that work. But he's also simultaneously thinking about redesigning the structure of his administrative team and having each assistant principal be in charge of a certain house of students that would have social workers and guidance counselors and a specific team assigned to those roughly 500 kids. That's a piece that he's still trying to figure out and work out, and I think he'll be back looking for support with that next month. They're still trying to, remember that he's only been in this role since September, right? So we're talking about in 7 months, he's come up with these designs and these changes on what needs to be implemented. But I say yes and yes because these folks are going to be the people that are on the floor, and I do think that Principal Bowen will be coming back and talking about other different kinds of positions as well.
But the specific positions that we were just listening to regarding the mediators, I mean, this sounds very similar to the work that's being asked here with the security
he
transition.
wasn't asking for any additional mediators. It will remain that Sarah Shavs is going to do that job and that she'll be training students to do peer mediation. He said it would be great if we had a whole team of those people, but he wasn't asking for a team of those people. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mr. Kingston.
I happened to be at the high school today. I had to drop something off to a teacher. I was. And I was. Mr. Bowen was literally doing lunch duty, standing outside the CAF, basically, being a hall monitor. And I just said hi, and I said, how's it going? He goes, it's okay. I said, this is what I'm doing. And I said, I understand. I said, hopefully, we'll be able to help you relieve that shortage. So I'm in favor of doing it now. It's very short money, and I think we have the money. And to see a principal standing in the hallway doing what he was doing, I just don't think it was, I don't think it's the best use of his time. And he was doing it out of necessity, not because he, he realized it needed to be done. He was basically stopping kids coming out of the CAF, where you going, and so on and so forth. So I think he needs the help. There's no sense that he was gonna, there's no guarantee they're gonna find them, but let's give them the tools to work with. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rizzo?
So are we voting on a dollar amount? I mean, or is this just an open check? Do we have a cap? Where?
There are dollar amounts, and actually they're a little bit out of date now because this original presentation was about 6 weeks ago. If I quickly prorate, like on the first goal, the estimate for the 15 weeks was going to be $21,600. We really only have 8 weeks left. So if we take 3/5 of that, it would be $12,000.
I have the numbers.
Oh, you do? Okay.
We have
Yes.
the two math people.
What do you have, Michael?
All right.
Fight over the math.
On goal number 1, based on 9 weeks,
Yeah.
would be $12,960.
Okay.
On the second goal, based on 9 weeks, would be $33,120. I didn't know what the number would be for the goal 3, because they didn't give us a cost, but assuming that they said 12,000 was the number, we use that as a number. Obviously, number 4, he's gonna say he can take care of it, and add 32,000. So when I add the whole thing, it came to like 90,000.
And that's assuming that people get started today, which isn't going to
Yeah,
happen.
but that's based
Exactly,
on
so
what you're
that-
actually voting on.
Right, but that number isn't really, it's going to be less than that, guaranteed. He's not going to hire someone today and they're going to start tomorrow. It just doesn't work. Life doesn't work that way.
No, I understand that though,
No,
but you
I
still
just-
need a number to budget
I understand.
on.
I was just making a point. Thank you.
She sent this to me already.
Could we set the number at 80,000, not to exceed 80,000?
It's fine with me.
NTE, $80,000?
She got that at the March meeting.
This is the same one from the March meeting.
Yes, Carol.
Why don't you just make a motion?
You should have watched it.
I did watch it.
Oh, didn't you see the presentation?
All right, I'm gonna make a motion to, on his climate improvement, that it does not exceed $90,000.
Second.
Up
You have
to,
a second?
Up to 90,000.
second.
Second? Okay. Dr. Mokuba?
Mrs. Bronston Rizzo.
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti.
Yes.
Ms.
Not
Greb.
funny.
Yes.
Mr. Kingston.
Yes.
Mrs. Milbury Ellis.
Yes.
Ms. Ty.
Yes.
Acting Mayor Keefe.
Yes.
Excuse me?
Hold the question here.
I have a question. Can I get a copy of whatever he had?
I'll give it to you here.
It's from your March meeting. It's
I
in your
wa-
packet tonight,
It
but
was
it's
in the
also from
packet?
your, in the Ways and Means Subcommittee meeting packet.
I wasn't there.
Want this one?
But it's also what you got at the March meeting.
It's the same one? His
Yeah.
is all,
Well, he wrote all over his, yeah. I have mine.
thank you.
It was the March 1st meeting when Principal Bowen and Deputy Principal Riley presented.
It's just, that one's landscaping, his is.
Okay. Before we go on to the next agenda item, Ms. Kelly, would you like to state?
Sure. I just want to clarify one other point that I had mentioned earlier in the Ways and Means Subcommittee meeting, that the replacement of the field house doors is coming under a maintenance account that we have. It's separate from, that's, Carl Svensson was doing that, but we wanted to name it as part of our plan that we were working on, and Mr. Bowen did that last month.
Thank you for your clarification. Before we go on to the next item, I wanted to point out that in our audience this evening, we have our future school committee member that will be sworn in on May 15th at 6 p.m., Jacqueline Monteroso. Did I say that correct?
Yes,
All right.
formerly Chavez.
Formerly Chavez. Congratulations on your wedding, and welcome. Thank you. Next item, motions. There are none? Any motions?
I am going to ask, I had originally asked for these two motions to be on the agenda, and they're not monetary, they're just some clarifications, not clarifications, but changing of a word, and also a motion in a positive way, and I'm asking permission if I can go forward with those motions.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Good. All right.
So, I mean, the first one is the word "old business," and I'm asking to change it to "unfinished." Robert Rules does not acknowledge it as old business, and it acknowledges as unfinished, and it just sounds a little bit more refined. Even for my language, it's
have a
more
s-
refined.
Do we have a second on the motion? Second. Dr. Mokuba?
Mrs. Bronston Rizzo?
Yes?
Mr. Ferranti?
Yes.
Ms. Gravellisi?
Yes.
Mr. Kingston?
Yes.
Mrs. Milbury Ellis?
Yes.
Ms. Ty?
Yes.
Acting Mayor Keefe?
Yes.
And the next one is a positive, and it's a motion to recognize the amazing work and commitment made by the cast and crew of In the Heights at our next scheduled meeting. I will also ask if maybe we could, because it is such a large cast and crew, if we can hold it maybe during the school day when most of them can be there. At a time that maybe Ms. Manessian and Ms. Williams feels it might be best that they can all gather.
Second.
Second.
Thank you.
Dr. Mokuba?
Mrs. Bronston Rizzo?
Yes?
Mr. Ferranti?
Yes.
Ms. Gravellisi?
Yes.
Mr. Kingston?
Yes.
Ms. Milbury Ellis?
Yes.
Ms. Ty?
Yes.
Acting Mayor Keefe?
Yes. Item number 11, is this unstarted business or? New business?
You're only acting.
Any new business? It's a good performance. No new business? Okay. Oh, there you go. Ms. Ellis?
Actually, I have something to ask about under unfinished business. I just was looking for an update on where we are with the collaboration with the vocational school and bringing those services.
Yeah, we are scheduled to begin in the fall. They've been out to look at, they've been out to look at facilities, and students are selecting their electronics class from the course catalog in preparation for next school year.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kingston?
No, I was.
You good? Took the words out of your mouth. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay, we good, are we finished with unfinished business? All right, wonderful. Item number 11. Wow. Number 11, new business. Any new business?
No.
No, okay. And item number 12, executive session. No needs to go to executive session. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Actually, before you take the motion to adjourn, I'd like to just take a moment, if I could, and I know some of you would like to also, to recognize Councilwoman Gravellisi, who, Councilwoman, wow, I gave you a new job. Committeewoman Gravellisi, who is participating in her last official regular school committee meeting this evening. And I, anticipate there might be 1 or 2 meetings between now and her official last day in May. But on the odd case that we weren't able to meet together, on behalf of the school committee, and I'm sure all of them will have some comments too, but we wanted to present you with this Chelsea clock as a small memento of our thanks for all that you've done for the children of Revere.
Is she crying yet?
Not yet.
I don't make people cry.
Speech.
Oh, you do.
Today?
Speech.
Dun-dun-dun.
Ms. Gravellisi.
I was hoping that everyone would forget this was my last meeting. But you almost did. That would have been good. That would have been better. And I knew that everyone knows how I stumble at words, so I just wrote something quickly so that I wouldn't stutter. So DK, Mr. Acting Mayor, Stacy, Michael, Carol, Aisha, and John. As you all know, I'm stepping down from the school committee for personal and family reasons. This change is incredibly bittersweet, and I meant every word that I said in my broader announcement in the Revere Journal. The positive experience that I have afforded as a member of the Revere School Committee cannot be overstated, and I owe that in large part to each of you. Together, over the past 10 years, we've navigated through both challenges and triumphs. And as always, as we say, we have happily agreed to disagree for the betterment of the Revere Public Schools. As I move on in this new chapter in my life, I will be forever grateful for the collaboration and the collegiality of this group. And I'm confident that we've not only learned and grown in the process, but have made positive impact through our service to our schools, our children, and our community. I'd like to extend a sincere and heartfelt thank you to the City of Revere and its constituents, to my family, to my friends, for the support that you have given me in the past, the present, and the future. I'd also like to extend a final and sincere, heartfelt thank you to each and every one of you, my colleagues on the Revere School Committee. I know that you'll make an impactful change in the future, and I'll be there to cheer you on from the sidelines. I love you guys. Now, don't say anything bad about me, Stacy.
Ms. Ty?
I'd like to say, Susan, it has been a pleasure working with you. You always were professional. You always had that nice, quiet smile, always giving everybody the best look, the best of everything, giving people credit where credit was due and maybe even where it wasn't, but that's because you see the bright side, the good side in everyone. And I have seen that elicited from people, and that's because of all you have done. And I will certainly miss you very much. And I wish you the best of luck and success in whatever you choose to do. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Ferrante?
what can I say? What can I say that already has been said?
Joey.
I won't. I promise. It's really been an honor and a pleasure to serve with you, Susan. I mean, we've done this a long time, and it was really an honor. And you put a little perspective in that some of us don't have, and that's both of us.
You know what? I don't need to deal with this. Not running again, so.
But it was really an honor and a pleasure. We wish you nothing but the best, and I'm sure everything will work out in your favor. And good luck.
Thank you. Okay.
Ms. Rizzo?
Truthfully, you want the real truth? It has been a pleasure to work with you. Yes, we've always agreed to disagree. No, we've agreed to disagree, and we've remained friends no matter what. And I appreciate your input. Might not have agreed, but I appreciate your input on many items. I think I am sad to see you and Jimmy leave, but I think it is the best for your family. And I have to say, I'm a little bit jealous right about now. But no, thank you, Susan, and I know you won't be far. So just
I'll
don't
be
call
around.
me.
I'll call you every day like we always do.
Ms. Ellis?
So we haven't worked together as long as you have with some of the rest of the members of the committee, but I would like to extend my well wishes for you and to say that I've appreciated your professionalism and your demeanor. You've always brought a positive attitude to our meetings, and I appreciate that about you. I am sad to see another Revere resident leave our city, but I can understand that you have your reasons. So I do wish you all of the best, happiness, health, and all of the above in your future endeavors. Of course.
Mr. Kingston.
I really appreciate it. Sitting next to you, a number of times I've reached over and said, what are we doing, or what are we going to talk about, or what do you think about this? So I'll miss you very much. As long as I don't have to sit next to Stacy, I think I'll be okay. But I will miss you, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, Mr. Kingston. And if I can, I won't take this personally, like I'm here, you leave, you know? It's not a big deal. But no, I do appreciate the time that you've put into the city of Revere. Your entire family has been, will be indebted for your service. You have been a very well-respected member of this school committee, and I'm also very excited to see that we're going to have really good shoes, people filling your shoes, and excited that there won't be any lag there. So congratulations, and I know that you're still going to continue to work with the city of Revere. So we're happy to keep you at some capacity, and thank you very much.
Yeah, you can't get rid of me too easily. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
And with that, we have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. Everyone have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you.